Throughout history, there have always been people who seem to walk a razor's edge between the ordinary and the extraordinary. They weren't superheroes, they weren't born with some mystical gift, and they weren't chosen by destiny. Instead, they carved themselves into who they became. They discovered something deep inside their own minds and bodies, a kind of presence, a power that set them apart. And the fascinating part is this: what they found wasn't given to them at birth, it was earned. When you look closely at the lives of these individuals, whether they were philosophers, warriors, monks, or inventors, you'll notice a common thread. Behind the mystery of their presence was something very practical: discipline. They submitted themselves to rituals and practices that, in today's world, might seem extreme, even unnecessary. But it was through those rituals, through consistency, sacrifice, and focus, that they unlocked a force within themselves that most people never touch. Think about the samurai in ancient Japan. They didn't just train with the sword, they lived by a code. Every action, from how they tied their clothing to how they bowed, was part of a discipline that shaped their mind as much as their body. Or consider the Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, who woke up each morning and reminded himself of death, loss, and hardship, not to be pessimistic, but to prepare his soul to face reality with strength. These weren't random habits. They were deliberate practices designed to sharpen the mind. What these people understood, and what we often forget, is that the mind is not naturally disciplined. Left on its own, it becomes restless, distracted, scattered. It craves comfort and runs from discomfort. But discipline, whether it's waking up at dawn, fasting, meditating, or practicing a skill for years, creates order where there would otherwise be chaos. It turns the mind into a weapon rather than a wandering shadow.
And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people never experience this transformation. They live their lives reacting to the world rather than shaping themselves. They rely on motivation, which comes and goes like the wind, instead of building discipline, which stays even when motivation dies. Motivation can make you start, but only discipline makes you continue when everything in you wants to stop. In our modern world, this message is even more urgent. We live surrounded by distractions, phones buzzing, endless feeds of content, constant stimulation. And yet rarely do we carve out moments of silence, stillness, or deliberate practice. The ancients, by contrast, lived with fewer distractions, but built entire philosophies and rituals to strengthen their minds. If they saw how we live now, they would probably say, "You have every tool to master yourselves, yet you let those tools master you." But let's be clear, discipline doesn't mean punishment. It doesn't mean beating yourself up or living in misery. True discipline is a form of love, a commitment to your higher self rather than your lower impulses. When you resist the urge to quit, to indulge, or to escape, you're not depriving yourself, you're choosing something greater. That choice, repeated again and again, creates a presence that others can feel. People may not know why, but they sense something in you, a quiet strength, a focus, an edge. This is why those figures from history inspire us so much. They remind us of what's possible when a human being decides to take themselves seriously. Their power wasn't mystical. It was the result of aligning their daily actions with a larger vision. They became living proof that discipline, when sustained over time, transforms not just the mind, but the entire being.
So the question becomes, what rituals, what disciplines are you willing to adopt in your own life? Not to impress others, not to prove something externally, but to shape your inner world into something unshakable. Maybe it's committing to a daily writing practice, or a meditation routine, or the discipline of fitness. Maybe it's learning to sit in silence without needing a distraction. Whatever it is, the principle remains the same. You earn your presence through practice. When people talk about charisma, confidence, or that energy that someone has, they often think it's natural. But most of the time, it's the byproduct of unseen discipline. Confidence is built in the dark, when no one is watching. Charisma grows out of consistency, out of showing up for yourself day after day. Presence isn't gifted, it's cultivated. And if you want to stand out in a world where most people are chasing comfort, then discipline becomes your greatest advantage. It's the quiet, steady force that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. History shows us this truth again and again. The only question left is whether you're willing to step onto that razor's edge yourself.
Let's start with a simple truth. Your mind is both your greatest ally and your greatest enemy. It can create empires, philosophies, and works of art, but it can also trap you in fear, laziness, and endless distraction. And most of the time, the mind doesn't work for you. You work for it. You obey its impulses, its cravings, its anxieties. This is why discipline is so powerful. It flips the relationship. Instead of being a servant to your mind, you begin to master it. Now, mastering the mind doesn't mean controlling every thought or becoming some emotionless robot. It means creating enough structure and inner strength to direct your energy where you want it to go. Think of it like training a wild horse. At first, the horse resists, bucks, and pulls away. But with consistent training, it learns to carry you with power and precision. That's exactly what discipline does for the human mind. It tames the chaos and transforms it into something useful. This is why so many great traditions across the world placed such a strong emphasis on daily practices. Take the monks of Tibet, who begin their mornings with hours of meditation, chanting, and ritual. Or the Sufis of the Islamic tradition, who used dance and repetition of divine names to discipline both the body and the heart. Even modern athletes, whether boxers or sprinters, live in a rhythm of training, rest, and repetition. These practices are not random. They're engineered to create order, consistency, and focus. And here's what often gets overlooked. Discipline doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you are. Every time you resist the temptation to quit, you strengthen an identity. I am someone who follows through. Every time you show up when it's hard, you reinforce the belief, I can rely on myself. Over time, this becomes your baseline. You stop identifying with weakness and start embodying strength.
The modern world, however, trains us in the opposite direction. We're taught to prioritize comfort above all else. Hungry? Order food instantly. Bored? Open your phone. Anxious? Escape into endless entertainment. Convenience is everywhere, and while it makes life easier, it also makes us weaker if we're not careful. Comfort isn't bad, but when comfort becomes the default, discipline disappears. And when discipline disappears, so does growth. This is why people who commit to disciplines, whether it's fitness, reading, prayer, or fasting, stand out so much today. They've chosen a harder path in a world of easy options. And ironically, by choosing the harder path, their lives actually become more meaningful. Comfort gives you ease in the moment, but discipline gives you depth across a lifetime. Here's something to reflect on. When you look back at your life 10 years from now, what moments will stand out?
Will it be the times you scrolled endlessly on your phone? Or will it be the times you pushed yourself, the times you stuck to something when it was uncomfortable, the times you chose growth over ease? That's the power of discipline. It builds memories and identity, not just temporary relief. But let's also address a common myth. People often think discipline means having perfect self-control all the time. That's not true. Even the most disciplined individuals struggle. The difference is they don't let struggle define them. They know discipline is a practice, not a one-time achievement. They fall, but they get back up. They lose focus, but they return to their routine. And every return strengthens them even more.
Another misconception is that discipline is boring. In reality, discipline creates freedom. Think about it. A writer who commits to writing daily develops the freedom to express themselves effortlessly. A musician who practices scales every morning can improvise beautifully at night. A martial artist who drills the basics gains the freedom to adapt in combat. The discipline may feel repetitive, but what it produces is creative freedom. Without discipline, there's no mastery. Without mastery, there's no real freedom. This is why those figures from history, whether it's a philosopher like Nietzsche, a warrior like Miyamoto Musashi, or a spiritual guide like the Buddha, all insisted on practice. They knew that knowledge alone is not enough. Reading about strength doesn't make you strong. Understanding philosophy doesn't make you wise. It's the daily practice, the grind, the rituals, the small repeated actions that carves transformation into your being. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a choice. We can live as most people do, drifting through life, reacting to circumstances, chasing short-term comfort. Or we can choose the harder but more rewarding path of discipline. A path that sharpens the mind, strengthens the body, and deepens the spirit. A path that, over time, gives you that quiet, unshakable presence that others can feel. And maybe the most empowering part is this: discipline is not reserved for the gifted, the elite, or the chosen few. It's available to anyone who is willing to commit. You don't need perfect conditions, expensive tools, or even natural talent. All you need is a decision to begin and to keep going. Because at the end of the day, discipline is nothing more than choosing your higher self over and over again until it becomes second nature. And when that happens, you don't just live, you live with power, with clarity, and with purpose.
Think about the soldiers of Sparta, men who lived in a society where weakness was not tolerated. From birth, they were tested, examined, and stripped of comfort. If a child was deemed too frail, they were left behind. As brutal as this may sound, it forged one of the fiercest warrior cultures the world has ever known. The Spartan was not simply a soldier, he was a living embodiment of discipline, endurance, and loyalty to something greater than himself. Now, you may be wondering, what does this have to do with you? You're not standing on a battlefield with shield and spear. You're not expected to fight to the death for your city. And yet, in a way, you are. Every day, you're standing on the battlefield of your own life. The enemies you face may not be flesh and blood, but they are real. Laziness, distraction, fear, addiction, weakness. These are the forces constantly pressing against you, waiting for a moment of weakness to slip in and dominate your life. This is why history continues to echo the same lesson. Discipline is freedom. It sounds like a paradox, but it's not. The man without discipline is a slave to his impulses, forever pulled in different directions. The disciplined man, however, is free to move with intention. He's not chained to fleeting moods or temporary desires. He is guided by something deeper, a vision, a principle, a mission. Take the example of the samurai in feudal Japan. Their entire existence was built upon a code, Bushido, the way of the warrior. It wasn't just about combat, it was about how you carried yourself in every aspect of life. Honor, duty, self-control. These were not optional virtues, they were essential. A samurai who broke the code was not simply shamed, he was no longer considered alive in spirit. That's how seriously they treated discipline. And because of it, they were able to face death without flinching, knowing their lives had been lived with unwavering focus.
But here's the question. Do we, in our modern world, treat life with the same seriousness? Or have we fallen into the trap of thinking that discipline is old-fashioned, unnecessary, even oppressive? Look around. How many people drift through life with no clear direction? How many waste their days on trivial distractions while their dreams collect dust in the corner of their minds? That is what a life without discipline looks like, a slow, quiet defeat. You don't have to live that way. You can choose a different path. Start small, create rituals, wake up at a consistent time, exercise not just to look good, but to remind yourself that your body is a vessel of power. Write, meditate, pray, study, whatever it is that aligns you with your deeper purpose. These small acts, repeated day after day, will transform you. They may not feel dramatic in the moment, but over time, they will carve you into something unshakable. Consider the monks who spend hours in meditation, training their minds to remain calm no matter the storm, or the artists who lock themselves in their studios, refusing to stop until their vision is complete. What do all of these people have in common? They are not waiting for motivation. They are not relying on fleeting bursts of inspiration. They are anchored in discipline. And this is where the transformation begins. The man who embraces discipline stops seeing it as punishment. He realizes it is a form of self-respect. When you honor your word to yourself, when you show up consistently, you build trust in your own strength. And when you trust yourself, the world cannot shake you.
Of course, discipline is not glamorous. It doesn't always make sense to outsiders. Waking up before the sun, practicing the same skill over and over, saying no to comfort when everyone else is indulging, these things may look extreme. But that is the price of mastery. That is the path of those who walk the razor's edge. In time, you will notice a shift. While others are trapped in cycles of procrastination and regret, you will be moving steadily forward. While others crumble in the face of challenges, you will stand firm. And while others wonder why life feels empty, you will feel the fire of purpose burning inside you. The truth is simple. Greatness is not reserved for the chosen few. It is available to anyone willing to pay the price. And the price is discipline. The rituals, the practices, the small sacrifices you make each day, they are not limitations. They are the keys that unlock the full potential of your mind, body, and spirit. So the question is, will you walk this path? Will you claim the power that history has shown belongs only to those who refuse to live as slaves to weakness? The choice is yours. You can drift with the current of comfort, or you can stand against it and carve your own way. The edge is waiting. The transformation is waiting. And the only thing standing between who you are and who you could become is whether or not you are willing to embrace discipline.